Look at this comet! Recently, it's erupted 4 times in less than 48 hours and has become nearly 300 times brighter than normal. This is the most powerful set of eruptions the comet has had in over 3 years. Should we worry here on Earth? Well, I wouldn't say scientists are worried. They're super excited. First, let me give you a little background. 29P is what astronomers call a centaur comet. Those are icy objects that orbit the Sun in the space between Jupiter and Neptune. What's interesting about centaurs is that they're kind of like cosmic hybrids because they're moving from one kind of space body to another. They start their life as far-out objects in a lifeless, freezing cold zone beyond Neptune. But then, over a few million years, they move inward toward the Sun because the planets of the solar system affect them with their gravity. Eventually, they turn into short-period comets. This term means they can pass close to the Sun and then slingshot back out into those icy regions. Centaurs, and their name indeed comes from a hybrid half-horse, half-human creature popular in Greek mythology, are especially interesting because they're basically leftovers from the formation of our solar system, kind of like cosmic fossils. Since they've been hanging out in the frigid outer solar system for so long, they've kept a lot of the volatile materials that were present when the solar system was first forming. This makes them a valuable clue in understanding how our solar system evolved. That's what makes scientists so enthusiastic. Now, about 29P itself. This thing is huge for a comet. It's about 37 miles across, which is almost 3 times the length of Manhattan. Now, worry not, it's too far away to cause us any harm. While it's one of up to 1,000 known centaurs, 29P is also in a rarer group of comets called cryovolcanic comets. Those are a fascinating class of space objects that have unique geological activity. The thing is, cryovolcanic comets not only contain a unique mix of ice, dust, and rock, but also feature cryovolcanoes, aka cold volcanoes. They erupt with volatile materials like water, ammonia, or methane instead of molten rock. As for regular comets, when they approach the Sun, the heat from the star evaporates their gases, leading to the emissions of dust and tiny particles, electrons, and ions. These materials create those magnificent trails. These eruptions are incredibly spectacular and make the comet appear a lot brighter since the cloud of cryomagma reflects the Sun's light. The cloud that forms around the comet is called the coma, and it can grow so large and bright that it makes the comet look like a fuzzy ball of light. If you've ever observed a comet, the coma is the halo you see around it. Such eruptions are pretty unpredictable. While most cryovolcanic comets follow elliptical orbits that take them far out into the solar system, 29P is on a more circular orbit, staying around the same distance from the Sun as Jupiter. You'd think that this would mean its eruptions would be more regular, but that's not the case at all. In fact, 29P erupts in a completely random and unpredictable way, and scientists are still trying to figure out why. The latest outbursts started on November 2, 2024, when 29P erupted for the first time in almost 2 years. This was followed by 3 more large eruptions in less than 48 hours, which really got the attention of astronomers at the British Astronomical Association. They'd been tracking 29P for a while, and they reported that the eruptions sent out a cloud of debris reflecting about 289 times more light than the comet's nucleus, which is a huge increase in brightness. Astronomers are expecting that the coma, which is growing after each eruption, could take on an unusual shape. The multiple outbursts might cause the coma to expand in a weird, irregular way. This is especially interesting because 29P hasn't had a major eruption like this since November 2022. Then it threw out over 1 million tons of debris. The last time it had a massive outburst was in September 2021, when the comet had multiple eruptions in quick succession. In addition to the confusion about its eruptions, 29P is pretty different from most other comets. Most comets have elliptical orbits that take them far out into the solar system. They spend decades, centuries, or even thousands of years far from the Sun, only to erupt when they get close. But 29P doesn't do that. No, it orbits the Sun once every 15 years and stays at about the same distance as Jupiter. This strange behavior makes astronomers even more eager to figure out what's going on with it. Another cool thing about 29P is that it doesn't ever get close enough to the Sun to grow a tail like other famous comets, such as the once-in-a-century comet, Tsuchinseng Atlas, which has recently made headlines. It passed the closest to Earth in 80,000 years. NASA's James Webb Space Telescope has been keeping an eye on 29P, helping solve some of the mysteries about the comet. And it has recently made another groundbreaking discovery. It has detected jets of CO2, good old carbon dioxide, coming from the comet. This was the first ever detection of CO2 jets on this particular comet. Webb has also discovered a jet of carbon monoxide coming from the comet. It can tell us a lot about the composition of the comet and its outbursts. What's especially interesting is that the jets seem to come from different parts of 29P's nucleus. Even though Webb can't actually figure out the nucleus itself because it's too small to see in detail, the jets coming from different locations on the comet's surface suggest that the nucleus may be made up of multiple objects. These objects might have different compositions, and it's possible that the nucleus is more of a composite body made up of smaller chunks that came together over time. Strangely, astronomers haven't detected any water vapor in the comet's atmosphere. That's unusual because the atmospheres of most comets often contain water. Our comet might lack water vapor due to the extremely cold temperatures on its surface. It could prevent water from evaporating or vaporizing. 29P isn't the only thing that Webb is studying. The telescope has also been making some big discoveries about galaxies far, far away. For example, Webb has recently spotted a galaxy with a pretty complicated name which appeared about 1 billion years after the Big Bang. What's super weird about this galaxy is that the gas in it is shining brighter than the stars, which is really rare. This could be a missing link phase in the evolution of galaxies, something that could help astronomers understand how galaxies transition from the very first stars, called population 3 stars, to the types of galaxies we see today. The stars in this galaxy are much hotter than we see in modern galaxies in local universe, around 144,000 degrees Fahrenheit, compared to the typical 72,000 to 90,000 degree Fahrenheit of stars today. This could mean that the galaxy is in the middle of a super brief but intense phase of star formation, where huge, hot stars are popping up in a dense gas cloud. And this gas cloud is glowing so brightly because it's being hit with tons of light from these stars. The research team behind this discovery says that although the galaxy doesn't have population 3 stars, because the data shows it has too much chemical complexity, it still could be a guide for understanding how galaxies evolved, from the first stars to the galaxies we're familiar with today. There are still so many questions about this galaxy. Is it a rare phase, or is it something that happens often in the early stages of galaxy formation? Astronomers are hoping to study more galaxies like this one to figure it out. An asteroid broke off the moon and now it's super close to Earth. Does it pose a danger to us? Kamo'oalewa, also known as 2016 HO3, spins super quickly as it orbits near our planet. Let's call it HO3 for short. Astronomers found it on April 27, 2016. Compared to other asteroids, it's tiny. On Earth, though, it would be the size of a small building, or about half the size of the London Eye Ferris wheel. They discovered it in Hawaii, and its name roughly translates to a fragment of something that seems to wobble. After some study, they realized that this asteroid might be a chunk of the moon that got blasted into space. There's a part of the moon called Giordano Bruno crater, named after an Italian philosopher, that guy who had to pay quite the price for his ideas. If you look at it from space, Giordano Bruno stands out because it's surrounded by some rays of material. They're super huge, stretching over 93 miles and are still bright. This means that an enormous boom once happened there. There's an interesting story about this. In 1178, 5 monks were traveling in Canterbury, England. Suddenly, they saw something strange happening on the moon. They said it looked like the moon was splitting, with flames and sparks. Then there was a darkening that spread all across the lunar surface. In the 20th century, scientists found these records and thought that these monks saw the formation of the Giordano Bruno crater. But later it turned out that the crater is about 4 million years old. And thank the stars, because such a massive impact, if it really happened in the 12th century, would have gone crazy on our planet. It would have caused a huge meteor storm on Earth. In any case, our HO3 is most likely a piece of the moon that broke off during that impact 4 million years ago. Luckily, there's no need to panic about it. When astronomers spotted this sudden moon piece, they quickly tracked its orbit. Turns out, it won't collide with us anytime soon. It's going to be our quasi-satellite for at least 300 more years, meaning it'll follow a path around the Sun that keeps it close to Earth without colliding. Its orbit is wild though. It seems to be constantly looping around our planet in some pretty unique loops, moving closer and going away, up and down. And then somewhere in the 24th century, it will go even more crazy, switching to a horseshoe orbit, slowly going away from us. Could HO3 collide with us someday? Maybe, but that would happen over millions of years, when it would leave its current orbit and collide with Earth, Venus, or even the Sun itself. Or maybe entirely ejected from the solar system. Even though it's one of the closest asteroids ever discovered, it's also one of the smallest and most stable ones. This discovery also opens up some exciting ideas about life in the universe. We see that rocks can travel between celestial bodies. There is a theory that life could have been spread all across the universe by traveling on these rocks like on some space Ubers, or at least the building blocks of life like carbon. Maybe life even hitchhiked to our planet on rocks from Mars. HO3 probably doesn't carry any life, but the fact that it can travel for millions of years carrying stuff on it and feeling fine supports this theory. Astronomers want to send something to investigate HO3. Back in 2017, a group of students gave an idea of using a spacecraft for it. The China National Space Administration wants to send a robotic probe to HO3 somewhere in 2025. The robot should fly there, collect samples, and bring them back to Earth for study. Unfortunately, you can't see this asteroid in the sky with the naked eye. Its size is about 130 to 330 feet in diameter, so it would be too tiny and dim to see without a super powerful telescope. But there is an asteroid that you'll be able to see, and it will be insane. In 2029, a large asteroid will pass so close to Earth that it will be visible to the naked eye. Make sure not to miss it, because this is a once-in-a-thousand-year event. The asteroid is known as 2004 MN4, or Apophis for short. It's much bigger than HO3, about 1,210 feet wide. This will be the closest asteroid passage ever. This one actually caused some panic back in December 2004, all because there was a 2.7% chance that it could hit Earth in 2029. People were horrified. Even the name, Apophis, is inspired by an evil serpent from ancient Egyptian mythology. A huge monster that fought Ra and always tried to swallow the sun and destroy the planet. Luckily, when scientists got more data, they realized that it would pass pretty close to us in 2029, and we'd be able to see it in the sky. But then, it will just fly away like a chill asteroid. There was another worry though. That during its close pass, Apophis might travel through something called a gravitational keyhole. Basically, that it could travel through a specific narrow region of space which would accidentally alter its orbit. And then it would make an epic comeback in 2036, like the planet from the movie Melancholia. However, after some calculations, scientists ruled out this possibility as well. Apophis will still come quite close to us in 2036, but it will be about as far away as Venus is when it overtakes Earth. And then Apophis and Earth will just go their own separate ways. On average, an asteroid the size of Apophis is only expected to hit Earth once every 80,000 years. And if it did hit us, it would completely destroy a huge area, causing earthquakes and tsunamis all around the world. But it wouldn't cause an apocalypse or anything like that. You'd only be able to see Apophis from Europe, Africa, and Western Asia. So if you want to see it, you might need to travel. The asteroid will look like a fast-moving star in the night sky, shining bright enough to be seen without any special equipment. It would be easy to spot at night, though city lights might make it harder to see. Now, can you imagine that these are not the only guys hanging nearby? Both HO3 and Apophis are part of the so-called Apollo orbit asteroids. These are the asteroids with orbits going around Earth, an entire group of dangerous fellas. Since they cross Earth's orbit, they have the potential to come close to or even collide with our planet. The first asteroid of this group to be discovered was 1862 Apollo, named after the Greek deity of the sun. It was first discovered in 1932, and the group was named after it. This one was even bigger, almost a mile in size. In fact, it's so huge that it even has its own tiny moon. Apollo crosses orbits of not just Earth, but also Venus and Mars. Fun fact, even though it was the first one of its kind, telescopes accidentally lost it out of view for over 40 years. So scientists went, oh well, let's just keep the count of things we can see. When Apollo was rediscovered in 1973, it wasn't the first asteroid on the list and got a big number in its name. Apollo will fly near us during the next hundreds of years. In 2075, it will be somewhere around Venus, but it should fly by as well. In any case, there's no need to worry, because astronomers are keeping a close track on these guys. If we were in any immediate danger, we'd have known. In order for an asteroid to totally destroy life on our planet, it should be bigger than 6 miles in diameter, like the one that helped to wipe out the dinosaurs 66 million years ago. But these guys are so crazy rare, we'd probably live on other planets by the time they arrive on Earth.
Hundreds of millions of rocks orbit the Sun within the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, but only some of them come relatively close to Earth. NASA classifies asteroids orbiting within 30 million miles of our planet as near-Earth objects, and inside this group, there are particularly worrisome objects. Those are so large and orbit so closely to our home planet that they could turn into a real threat to the world should a direct collision occur. At the moment, NASA is keeping a close eye on an asteroid named Bennu. It's a fairly large space object that might smash into our planet in 159 years. According to the experts, the asteroid, which was first spotted in 1999, is quite likely to drift into the orbit of our planet. If it happens, it might collide with Earth by the 24th of September, 2182. Asteroid Bennu is thought to be taller than the Empire State Building. If that hits our planet, the collision will release 1,200 megatons of energy. That's an enormous amount of energy that nothing built on Earth could produce. Scientists from NASA believe that during the flyby in the 22nd century, there's a tiny chance that the asteroid will pass through a gravitational keyhole. That's a region of space that might set the space traveler on a certain path, which could result in the asteroid crashing into Earth. Bennu flies by our planet every 6 years. It has had 3 close encounters with Earth, in 1999, 2005, and 2011. These days, scientists estimate the chance of the asteroid hitting our planet by 2182 as 1 in 2,700. That's more than 5 times a person's chance of being struck by lightning. But even though Bennu's chance of colliding with Earth are quite low at the moment, the space rock has still been categorized as a, quote, potentially hazardous asteroid, all because it might come as close as 4.65 million miles from Earth. That's the reason why it's also classified as a near-Earth object. Bennu is a carbon-rich asteroid that was formed in the first 10 million years of the history of the solar system. That's around 4.5 billion years ago. No wonder this space body holds precious clues to the origin and development of the rocky planets of our solar system, which are, as you recall, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. Even better, it may contain organic molecules, similar to those that are crucial for life to evolve. In 2020, NASA's OSIRIS-REx managed to briefly touch the surface of the asteroid. It collected some samples and propelled off the space rock afterward. For NASA, it was the first mission of this kind. But it won't probably come as a surprise that Bennu isn't the only asteroid we should worry about. Asteroid 99942, Apophis, is another space body we'd better watch out for. It's a near-Earth object about 1,100 feet across. It was discovered in 2004, and at first, it was identified as one of the most dangerous asteroids ever detected. Apophis gained notoriety very fast. It was believed to pose a serious threat to Earth. Experts predicted that it would come uncomfortably close to our planet in 2029. Luckily, after a more careful examination of Apophis and its orbit, astronomers concluded that there was no risk of the asteroid colliding with our planet for at least a century. The risk of an impact in 2029 was ruled out completely, as well as the potential impact that could be caused by the asteroid's close approach in 2036. Interestingly, until March 2021, there was a small chance of a collision in 2068. But then, Apophis made a flyby of Earth, and astronomers took this chance to use powerful radars to estimate the asteroid's orbit around the Sun more precisely. This allowed them to rule out any impact risk for at least the next 100 years. Now, the reason why such discoveries make us so worried is that even a relatively small asteroid, the size of a house, can wreak havoc upon colliding with our planet. And if an asteroid is larger than 0.6 miles across, astronomers call it a planet destroyer. The impact energy released by such an asteroid after striking Earth could be devastating. That's why knowing where such asteroids are and in what direction they're moving is crucial. The problem is that our capability to protect the planet from asteroid impacts is not top-notch yet. If such a catastrophe was about to occur, we would need some time to prepare, because an asteroid collision is no joke. Probably the most well-known asteroid impact site is the Chicxulub crater. It's the evidence of the terrifying collision that led to the extinction of dinosaurs. Strangely, this crater isn't very visible, but some others are. For example, Barringer Crater in Arizona, which is also called Meteor Crater. It looks rather blood-chilling when you think about the collision that led to its appearance. In any case, we now know that space rocks hit not only the Earth but also the Moon, Mercury, and Mars. No rocky planet in the solar system is safe from asteroid impacts. That's why we have an entire scientific enterprise whose goal is to find and catalog the asteroid population of the solar system. Now, it might sound a bit scary, but there are around 25,000 asteroids larger than 460 feet in diameter near the orbit of our planet. Such a space rock is large enough to wipe an entire city off the face of the Earth. So far, less than 50% of such asteroids have been detected and tracked. There are also an estimated 230,000 objects equal to or larger than 160 feet in size. Those are capable of destroying a concentrated urban area, and still fewer than 8% of those have been detected. There are also tens of millions of smaller near-Earth objects. They are larger than 33 feet across and might cause some surface damage. Less than 1% of such small space bodies have been discovered so far. Now, the thing is, the inner solar system is extremely challenging for asteroid search. Each night, there are only 2 10-minute windows when astronomers can observe the region, all because the sun's glare creates a very bright background glow. Plus, the atmosphere of our planet also distorts and blurs observations. Spotting asteroids in such conditions is beyond the capabilities of most telescopes. A unique instrument is needed to fulfill this task, and the tool of choice is the Dark Energy Camera at Cerro Tololo Inter-American Observatory in Chile. This device wasn't designed to hunt asteroids. Researchers built it to search for another elusive target, dark energy, the mysterious force driving the expansion of the universe. The DEC is supposed to observe hundreds of millions of galaxies. That's why it's both wide and deep. This way, it can both peer deep into the universe and capture a wide field of view, which helps it record the motions of galaxies and the conditions in the early age of the universe. But it also means that the DEC is perfectly suited to spotting asteroids near the Sun. Inner asteroids are rare, and deep images are necessary because such asteroids are faint. Scientists need to be able to fight both the bright twilight sky near our star and the distorting effect of Earth's atmosphere, and the DEC can help them achieve their goal. The Dark Energy camera was built to carry out the Dark Energy Survey, which finished in 2019. Now astronomers can direct the power of the camera towards other tasks. They claim that the DEC's survey is one of the most sensitive searches ever performed for objects near Venus's orbit and within the orbit of our planet. It provides us a great chance to find out what kinds of objects are lurking in the inner solar system. So, how do you feel about cooking? Nah, pasta and burgers are overrated. How about something more exotic, or rather, more cosmic? So, the recipe is simple. Take a team of enthusiastic astronomers and add some old images from the James Webb Space Telescope. Stir really well, and you'll get a shocking number of tiny asteroids in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Yummy! The highlight of this dish is the direction in which some of the asteroids are moving, because in their way, there's our poor planet. Are we doomed just because you decided to cook? Now, the asteroids I'm talking about are much smaller than the massive space rock that wiped out the dinosaurs, but they can still cause considerable damage. They range in size from as small as a bus to as big as a stadium. But even those small ones pack quite a punch. Let's look at a recent dramatic example. It happened on February 15, 2013. A small asteroid just tens of feet wide exploded in an airburst over Chelyabinsk in Siberia, releasing an insane amount of energy. Many people witnessed and recorded the event, and it gave scientists vital clues. New computer models helped scientists reconstruct the size, speed, and impact of the Chelyabinsk meteor. It was likely an asteroid, about the size of a 5-story building, exploding from 15 to 18 miles above Earth's surface with an enormous, incomparable force. The blast shattered 1 million windows and hurt over 1,000 people. Fortunately, it wasn't powerful enough to cause too much damage, but it gave us an idea about how dangerous an airburst can be. Now, an airburst occurs when an object explodes high in the atmosphere, never striking the ground, but releasing enough energy to devastate the area. But back to the small asteroids. The most dangerous thing about them is that they hit the Earth far more often than the larger ones, about 10,000 times more frequently. To make matters worse, their small size makes them harder to detect in advance, leaving little time for preparation if one is heading towards Earth. Now, let's travel back in time. Uh-oh, dinosaurs, too far back. Ah, there we go. A team of astronomers is working on a special method to find small asteroids in telescope images that were originally taken to study distant stars. Using this method, they've looked through thousands of JWST images of a star system called TRAPPIST-1. It's located 40 light-years away and is one of the most studied systems outside our solar system. Now, while analyzing these images, they discovered 138 new asteroids in the main asteroid belt, plus 8 they already knew about. And guess what? Among the newly found asteroids, 6 seem to have been pushed into paths that could bring them closer to Earth. Who did it? Well, probably nearby planets. Are they holding a grudge against Earth? Interestingly, scientists thought they'd find just a few new asteroids, but the number was much higher than they expected. Yet, it's no wonder. Right now, they're exploring a part of space they didn't know much about before. Now, let's talk about the hero of the day, the James Webb Space Telescope. It's especially good at finding small asteroids because it can detect their heat. These asteroids give off infrared radiation, which is much easier to see than the faint sunlight that reflects off their surfaces. This technology allowed scientists to spot the smallest asteroids ever seen in the main asteroid belt. The asteroids they found are pieces left over from collisions between bigger space rocks. Finding them helps astronomers understand the history of the asteroid belt and improve methods for tracking small asteroids that could threaten Earth. The researchers are planning to use James Webb to observe other star systems for at least 500 hours. They expect this work to uncover thousands more small asteroids in the solar system. Other advanced telescopes, like the Vera C. Rubin Observatory in Chile, will also help. Starting in 2025, this observatory will use the world's largest digital camera to photograph the southern sky every night for at least 10 years. Each image will cover a huge area of the sky, about 40 times the size of the full moon. The observatory might find up to 2.5 million asteroids in just 6 months, almost doubling the number we know about. Recently, NASA has identified 2 small asteroids. They were supposed to pass near Earth on December 16, 2024. Luckily, neither posed any danger to our planet. The first asteroid was 71 feet wide, about the size of a large airplane, and was traveling at 10,800 miles per hour. The second asteroid was slightly smaller, 56 feet wide, but it traveled faster at 14,700 miles per hour. But hey, even though this time the danger is past, who knows what the future will bring? It may sound weird these days, but astronomers didn't really care much about small asteroids for a rather long time. They thought of them as just random space debris that got in the way of observing stars. Some even called them sky parasites. But now, the way we see these little space rocks has completely changed. You see, until recently, we could only spot really big asteroids, those over a mile wide. The smaller ones just blended into the background noise in telescope images. But then, a clever trick appeared where multiple images of the same part of the sky were combined, making those faint small objects finally stand out. The data from certain telescopes, along with the James Webb Space Telescope, helps us improve planetary defense. But there's more to it than just protecting our planet. Studying these small asteroids also teaches us about how the solar system evolved. There are so many of them because they're fragments from collisions between bigger space rocks. One researcher has said, this is like looking at old data in a new way. These small asteroids, which people used to think of as space junk, are crucial for understanding our solar system and even preparing for whatever the future holds. Among those hundreds of millions of rocks orbiting the Sun in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, some are especially worrisome. They come close enough to Earth for it to be quite concerning. NASA classifies asteroids that orbit within 30 million miles of our planet as near-Earth objects, and those could pose a serious threat if they were to collide with our planet. Right now, NASA is closely monitoring an asteroid named Bennu. This is a fairly large space rock, measuring about 1,600 feet across. It could, potentially, crash into Earth in 159 years. First, the astronauts spotted it in 1999. So currently, experts believe that there's a small chance Bennu could drift into Earth's orbit and collide with our planet by September 24, 2182. Would it be bad? Well, to put it in perspective, Bennu is taller than the Empire State Building. If it hit Earth, it would generate 1,200 megatons of energy, an amount so massive that nothing on Earth could generate that. NASA scientists are particularly concerned about a tiny chance that Bennu could pass through a gravitational keyhole during a flyby in the 22nd century. This keyhole is a region in space that could set the asteroid on a path that brings it directly to Earth. Now, Bennu flies by Earth every 6 years and has had 3 close encounters with us in 1999, 2005, and 2011. Right now, scientists estimate that the chance of Bennu hitting Earth by 2182 is about 1 in 2,700, more than 5 times greater than the chance of being struck by lightning. Although the chances of Bennu colliding with Earth are very low right now, this space rock is still classified as a potentially hazardous asteroid because it might come as close as 4.65 million miles to Earth. Now, this asteroid is another space rock that we need to keep an eye on. It's a near-Earth object about 1,100 feet across, and it was discovered in 2004. Initially, it was considered one of the most dangerous asteroids ever detected. Apophis quickly gained attention because experts believed it could pose a serious threat to Earth because of its close approach to our planet in 2029. However, after further study of its orbit, astronomers determined that there was no risk of a collision for at least a century. Well, we can all breathe easier now, can't we? You know, many different things have nothing in common at first glance. The appearance of mysterious clouds over Stonehenge and the migration of wolves in Canada, patterns on the wings of a Caribbean butterfly, and strange footprints on the moon's surface. These are all random facts, but people can see connections in these events. Let's see how it can happen and where it can lead to. Imagine reading some crazy article on one of the unreliable sites, forgetting about it, and then beginning to notice small details in the world that might indicate that the information in this article is true. You realize you've learned something unusual, but for some reason, other people don't see it or don't want to see it. You try to tell them, but no one wants to listen to you. And some people even think you've gone mad. Let's stop for a moment and see what kind of article you've read. So, in 2017, one not-so-truthful site published a story about a ship from another planet called Black Knight that had been spying on people for 12,000 years. But not long ago, agents from a secret organization managed to destroy it. Sounds like absolute nonsense or a plot for a cheap sci-fi movie. Of course, you don't believe it. But a few years later, you find a story about Nikola Tesla. Let's fast forward to 1899. The famous scientist was sitting in his laboratory in Colorado Springs conducting radio experiments. Suddenly, his receiver caught a strange radio signal. Then, after a while, another one. The signals came in with the same time interval, as if someone wanted to send a message. Nikola Tesla realized it could be something from extraterrestrial civilizations that were trying to start a dialogue with people using the most universal language, math. He also reported about this event in a magazine at the beginning of the 20th century and added that he hadn't deciphered the message. Okay, now let's forget about it and see what happened next. In 1927, an engineer from Oslo, who was fond of radio devices, was sending signals into open space. He was surprised when, sometime later, the same signals began to return to his receiver. It was as if the signals bounced off something big and echoed back, or something received these messages and then sent them back to the sender to make an acquaintance. The man quickly reported his discovery to scientific journals, and perhaps someone connected this event with Nikola Tesla's words about strange signals from space. All this were just prerequisites for the Black Knight. But the most exciting events started decades later. In the 60s, Time magazine published an article that said that the U.S. had discovered a satellite orbiting Earth and using unknown technology. A couple of years later, Project Mercury astronaut Gordon Cooper reported that he had seen a strange object during his spaceflight. But the Black Knight became really famous only in the late 90s, when NASA published a series of images of a mysterious object. During the first flight to the ISS, astronauts noted weirdly shaped somethings and took several pictures. Then someone gathered all the facts, collected all the information about the black satellite, and discovered that it had been flying around our planet for more than 10,000 years. How did they figure it out? People managed to calculate the age of those radio signals that Tesla and the engineer had received. If this is true, the Black Knight appeared much earlier than the Sumerians in ancient Egypt. What if this satellite helped build pyramids and majestic temples? What if it had been watching over our development all this time and transmitting this information to another planet? What if mysterious images ancient people drew depicted the satellite? People began to suspect NASA and other space agencies of hiding information about the black object to prevent panic. And now, after having received all the data about the mysterious satellite, you might begin to suspect that the bizarre article may actually be true. This news is so improbable and ridiculous that no one will believe it. If you want to hide something, hide it in plain sight. And so, together with other enthusiasts, you start hunting for any information about the mysterious ship. You create forums, post photos of unknown objects, and become obsessed with this topic. You really believe in the reality of the Black Knight. Moreover, you don't want to question its existence. And people reading your articles do the same. Congratulations! You have become an ideal candidate for creating fake news in the yellow press. Such myths and urban legends seem attractive. The human brain feels pleasure when it finds fake secret information. The feeling of mystery, adrenaline, and shock can cause psychological addiction. That's why the stories about the Black Knight are still alive. Mysterious facts seem logical, and people stop seeing information that refutes their theories. The case of the Black Knight is no exception. The fans of this black object believe that Nikola Tesla received signals from some space civilization. But for some reason, they don't attach importance to scientific articles, which say that such radio signals could be sent by giant space objects like pulsars. A pulsar is a rotating neutron star emitting powerful electromagnetic radiation. Such radiation is often found in space. These radio waves don't imply the presence of a mind and a sender. The cosmos is full of such signals. The technology for detecting such objects were created in the 60s. Or maybe Tesla's device caught a signal coming from our planet. Besides, the scientists didn't say anything about the Black Knight. So why did people connect these two events? That story with the Norwegian engineer is still unexplained. Yes, his signals returned as an echo, but this had nothing to do with the flying object in question either. You might as well say that the satellite somehow influenced the Titanic. There's no logic in such assumptions. Strangely, no one connected the Black Knight with the Yeti or the Kraken. Now, let's return to that Times article about a strange object flying around Earth. It also stated it was a fragment of an American reconnaissance satellite. But fans of myths and legends apparently didn't notice this explanation. As for astronaut Cooper, who is said to spot some object during his mission, he actually saw nothing. He even showed a transcript with no reports about the black satellite. However, some believers in other civilizations keep silent about this fact. So, the main proof of the Black Knight's existence is the photos taken during the first flight to the ISS. The astronauts noticed this strange object and took pictures, but it wasn't a surprise for them because some part of the ship broke away during some work they did outside. It was a piece of thermal coating. The astronauts sent the photo to NASA, and the space agency assigned it a personal number, as it does with all such objects. A few days later, the Black Knight fell out of orbit and burned up in Earth's atmosphere. Almost all this information was recorded in official protocols. One of NASA's engineers, who knew the photographer of the black satellite, explained that those famous photos depicted an ordinary piece of the ship. There was nothing fantastic about it. But the fans of extraterrestrial rockets must have missed all this information. All these myths have long been debunked, and all the false facts have been refuted. But the Black Knight continues to live in many people's minds and on the pages of the yellow press. It has become a link between many reports of strange flying objects. Over the years, hundreds of stories have appeared about secret laboratories with extraterrestrial technologies, about NASA hiding secrets, and about creatures from other planets. And many people connected these myths with the black satellite. It has stopped being a real physical object. Now it's a cultural phenomenon. Remember how the main symbol of extraterrestrial civilizations was a flying saucer? It's not trending anymore. Today, the symbol is a black, weirdly shaped stone. Don't be fooled. So this year, before September, a star in the constellation of Corona Borealis will explode, and in the Northern Hemisphere, we'll be able to see it with the unaided eye. The star is T Corona Borealis, a white dwarf star 3,000 light-years away from our solar system. It will turn into a nova, which we'll discuss a bit later, in spring or summer. Even though this occurrence is predictable, happening every 80 years, it's still a once-in-a-lifetime event, if you're human. T Corona Borealis is not your regular star. It's actually a binary, two stars orbiting each other. This pair, though, is incredibly special. Occasionally, the stars increase their brightness to such an extent that they become visible on Earth. The white dwarf star is the more massive one of the two. But the most shocking thing about it is that it might pack the same mass as the Sun into a volume only as large as Earth. The companion star, an aging red giant, has already expanded so much that it's dumping its material onto the white dwarf. So it's time for another explosion for these two. It's going to take the star's brightness from magnitude 11 to magnitude 2. You see, in astronomy, magnitude is used to measure the brightness of a star or another celestial object. The brighter it is, the lower the number assigned as a magnitude is. Just like golf, low scores, you know. In our case, it means that we'll be able to see the star with the unaided eye, even in light-polluted skies. Now, we can only see the binary with binoculars in a completely dark sky. After the outburst, T Corona Borealis will remain the brightest star in the constellation of Corona Borealis for a few days before gradually dimming. Now, this event shouldn't be confused with a supernova. In a supernova, a star's core collapses, which leads to its complete destruction. It can only happen to a star 8 times the mass of the Sun. Instead of disappearing in a blinding flash of light forever, T Corona Borealis will experience a nova, an explosion on its surface, flinging matter into space but not ruining the star itself. Such recurrent novas happen at regular intervals. T Corona Borealis was known to astronomers from the past as the Blaze Star. Last time it exploded in 1866 and 1946. Astronomers from NASA believe it's going to do it again before September this year. The constellation of Corona Borealis, also known as the Northern Crown, is one of the most beautiful out there. It's a curved semicircle of 7 stars, which is easy to find in April. You should go outside 2 hours after dark and look to the east-northeast. Once you find the Big Dipper, use the curve of its handle to go to Arcturus, finding the bright star in the Buddhist constellation due east. If you go diagonally down to the east-northeast horizon, you'll spot Corona Borealis. Now, if you want to observe the brightening of T Corona Borealis, it might be better if you get acquainted with the region and the stars of the constellation it's in. Once the event begins, you'll be able to compare its brightness against the other stars and observe the thing without using any fancy cameras. Now, a nova is a short-lived sudden explosion, involving a compact star as large as Earth or a bit bigger. The outburst comes from a white dwarf circling remarkably close to a regular star, so close that a stream of gas flows between them. This gas starts piling up until it creates a layer on the white dwarf's surface, and then it reaches a point where it detonates in a runaway thermonuclear explosion. According to astronomers, around 50 nova happen every year in our galaxy, but not all of them are noticed. NASA's Fermi Gamma Ray Space Telescope has observed several nova that occurred not far on the scale of the universe. They found out that each blast produces gamma rays. Those are the most energetic forms of light. Researchers also think that these gamma rays result from collisions among numerous shock waves, racing from the explosion site in a quickly expanding shell of debris. Now, after we've talked about novae, it's time to discuss something much more dramatic: supernovae. It's the largest explosion humans have ever seen. Each blast is a super powerful burst of a star. One kind of supernova is caused by the last hurrah of an extinguishing massive star. It happens to stars at least 5 times the mass of our Sun. Once they near the end of their lives, they go out with a ginormous bang. Huge stars burn incredible amounts of nuclear fuel at their core, producing tons of energy. It makes their centers immensely hot. Heat generates pressure, and this pressure keeps such stars from collapsing. But any star is in balance between 2 opposite forces. Its gravity attempts to squeeze the star into a teeny tiny ball, and the nuclear fuel burning at the core of the star produces powerful outward pressure. Now, when a giant star is running out of fuel, it starts cooling off. Its pressure drops and gravity wins. The star collapses. An enormous object that is millions of times the mass of Earth collapses within 15 seconds. No wonder this brisk process produces enormous shock waves. It makes the outer layers of the star explode. Eventually, an incredibly dense core is all that is left behind, besides a growing cloud of hot gas called a nebula. A black hole, the densest object in the universe, is the result of a supernova of a star around 10 times as massive as our Sun. Also, there's another type of supernova. It usually happens in systems where two stars orbit each other, and at least one of these stars is a white dwarf the size of our planet. If such a star collides with another, or pulls too much matter from its neighbor, it can explode into a supernova. Also, supernovae are often so bright they can outshine the combined light of entire galaxies for several days or even months. Supernovae aren't common. Astronomers think just a few of them occur within the century in galaxies like our home Milky Way. But since the universe contains an enormous number of galaxies, we can observe a few hundred supernovae every year outside our galaxy. Unfortunately, space dust blocks our view of most supernovae happening within the Milky Way. Betelgeuse, a late-stage red giant, exploded in 2019, but it wasn't the event we expected to see. This star is found in the constellation of Orion and is huge, so big that if we moved it to the center of our solar system, its outer edge would go way beyond the orbit of Jupiter. When Betelgeuse eventually nears its end, it will explode in a stunningly bright supernova visible on Earth even during the day. This explosion could happen as soon as tomorrow or as far-flung as hundreds of thousands of years from now, so don't hold your breath. But then, what was it in 2019? Astronomers noticed that the star was dimming. They decided it was the initial stages of the grand show. But instead, Betelgeuse went back to normal over the course of the next few months. Further analysis revealed that the star hadn't dimmed. It just looked like that because we had been observing it through a cloud of stellar debris. At the same time, the amount of light in the photosphere of Betelgeuse ramped up. It was like a massive explosion of material from the surface of the star. Events like this occur on the Sun all the time, especially when our star's activity is high. Bits of the Sun's surface get tangled up and cast off. That's what we call coronal mass ejections. They don't harm our planet, but they can mess with satellites and electrical equipment. Now, getting back to Betelgeuse, we've never seen such a huge mass ejection on the surface of a star before. It's a new phenomenon which we can observe directly and even see surface details with the help of the Hubble telescope. Astronomers say we're watching stellar evolution as it happens for the first time. It's been there for over 3 billion years. But now, some of the Earth's oldest crust is falling apart. Today, our continents seem stuck in place. But over a long time, they've moved and shifted around a lot. It's all thanks to tectonic activity, which makes part of Earth's surface slowly slide around like pieces of a giant puzzle. Some of the most stable parts of these puzzle pieces are called cratons. Cratons are super old and strong sections of rock that form the roots of continents and keep them together. The North American craton is one of them. It makes up a big part of the United States, about half of Canada, and most of Greenland. Scientists have singled out about 35 of these big ancient cratons around the world. They mostly stayed in the same place for hundreds of millions of years because of how strong they are. But in 2014, they discovered that cratons might not be as indestructible as they thought. Some cratons had lost parts of their strong roots because of certain geologic processes and became thinner. It looks like cratons could become less stable if they go through more tectonic changes. In 2024, scientists at China University of Geosciences analyzed an ancient landmass called the North China Craton, or NCC for short. They wanted to learn more about how some of Earth's oldest rock regions can break apart. This process of cratons disintegrating is called decratonization. The NCC is so interesting to study because it has 3 main parts: the Western Bloc, the Eastern Bloc, and the Trans-North China Orogen, a zone that lies between the 2 blocks. Scientists found that during the Mesozoic era, the Eastern Bloc lost its deep ancient roots because of the strong Earth movements called tectonomagmatic events. So scientists wanted to see exactly how the processes in the mantle and the movements of Earth's plates led to the breaking down of the NCC. They created 4D models showing how the NCC's shape changed over time, including its surface shape, how its layers stretched, and the way earthquake waves moved through it. They found that a section of the tectonic plate slid beneath the craton and then began to roll back. This rolling and stretching made the strong rock thin out and eventually lose stability. All this started around 200 million years ago, back during the Jurassic period, when dinosaurs were rocking the world. The North China Craton isn't the only place where this decratonization process can happen. Other cratons, like those in North America, South America, and China's Yangtze region, may have gone through similar changes. Scientists say this shows how the continents on Earth have slowly changed and evolved over billions of years. And it looks like, when it comes to geology, there's no place that is 100% safe from changes, but it's no cause for alarm. You don't notice this, but our planet never stops moving and is perfectly normal. But sometimes, this movement still brings dramatic changes. In 2017, scientists made an official announcement that Zealandia can be called a new continent. The continental shelves of this mysterious continent are lying at a depth of around 3,280 feet below sea level. The nearest oceanic crust dives even deeper, at 9,800 feet below that. Geologists have gone deep down to collect rocks from the ocean floor. They've found that, unlike the nearby oceanic crust, which is made up of fresh basaltic rocks, the crust around New Zealand is a mix of ancient granite, limestone, and sandstone. All this screams continental crust. Plus, scientists have discovered a narrow strip of oceanic crust that separates Australia from the hidden land of Zealandia. It means these two are separate continents. 85 million years ago, Zealandia decided to break free from the supercontinent Gondwana. Millions of years later, the mighty Pacific Plate, the heavyweight champion of tectonic plates, decided to take a dive beneath Zealandia's continental crust. And that's how the root of Zealandia, that connection to its continental crust, broke off and went into the depths below. And that's not all the tectonic news from this part of the world. 120 million years ago, Australia and Antarctica were a single piece of land. They went their separate ways, but Antarctica didn't leave empty-handed. Today, there's an oceanic plateau in the Indian Ocean. Long ago, it was connected to another lost continent, the Kerguelen microcontinent. Scientists believe that it made a land bridge between India and Antarctica. To find out what it was like, we can look at a tiny archipelago in the southern Indian Ocean. These islands are all that is left of the ancient landmass. They have a cold climate and feature glaciers because they're so close to Antarctica. But in the past, the weather here must have been temperate with plenty of rainfall. The animals and plants would have been similar to those that live in tropical regions today. Another lost and found continent isn't hiding in the ocean, but under Europe. It's called Greater Adria, and it collided with Europe and started to sink under it around 100 million years ago. Today it lies beneath Italy, Greece, and the Balkans. Its size and even shape match that of Greenland, the world's largest island. Greater Adria is no longer visible, but it left some clues. Part of it was embedded in the Alps. The other chunks are part of present-day Italy and Croatia, on the other side of the Adriatic Sea. Limestone rocks from the former continent started to change once they were under the European landmass. Great heat and pressure spread over tens of millions of years changed their structure. And that's when the limestone left the chat and the marble took its place. Greater Adria wasn't a solid piece of land like the big continent we see today, but more like a giant shallow shelf underwater. Over time, sand, mud, and other stuff settled on this shelf and slowly turned into rock. Greater Adria might have been a little like Zealandia or the Florida Keys, a chain of small islands sitting in a shallow sea. Above the water, there were probably lots of little islands and archipelagos, and beneath the waves, there were colorful coral reefs filled with marine life. If you lived back then and had a scuba tank, it would have been an amazing place to dive and explore. So, with all the things going on with the cratons, who knows? We could see a new continent in the future. Plus, studying the Earth's crust even deeper can change history as we know it. Scientists in Copenhagen have made an amazing discovery about the real birthplace of Scandinavia, and it's not where we thought. After studying sand and rock from remote parts of Finland, They found out that Scandinavia's roots actually came from Greenland over 3.75 billion years ago. This means the area where Nordic countries are now is 250 million years older than the scientists had previously believed. And we now know, thanks to the tiny crystals called zircons found in Finnish river sands. When scientists looked closely at their chemical makeup, they realized the age of crystals matched the rocks found in Greenland, not Scandinavia. They used special techniques to analyze elements like uranium, lead, lutetium, and hafnium, and discovered that Scandinavia's rocky base most likely broke off from Greenland billions of years ago. A small seed of land probably started drifting across the Earth's surface over hundreds of millions of years. This piece eventually settled where Finland is today. Over time, new layers of rock formed around this seed and slowly turned into the Scandinavia we see on maps now. The same study could help us rethink how the continents on Earth first formed. The most accepted theory is that the continental crust began growing right when the planet was formed. But new studies show that the signs of continents only started growing a billion years later. The scientists explain that Earth's continents may have begun as tiny seeds of ancient crust in different places. These seeds grew over time, forming the landmasses we know today. These ancient seeds aren't just found in Scandinavia, but also in Australia, South Africa, and India. Scientists aren't sure if all these seeds came from the same place or if they grew separately in different parts of the world. So there's still a lot to learn, and scientists need to keep digging to figure out if all these ancient seeds are related to each other.
Imagine you're looking up at the sky on a clear night, and you see all those beautiful stars twinkling up there. Well, one of them is Betelgeuse, a celebrity among stars. If you want to catch a glimpse of it, look up at the Orion constellation. It low-key looks like an archer holding a bow, and you can spot Betelgeuse as the reddish-orange dot on their shoulder. It's one of the brightest stars in the sky, so it's hard to miss. Betelgeuse is not your ordinary star. First of all, it's gigantic, up to 1,000 times the size of our Sun. Can you imagine that? It's so enormous that if we could somehow replace our Sun with Betelgeuse, it would engulf all the inner planets, including Earth. And here's another fun fact. When we look at Betelgeuse, we're actually looking back in time. Yep, you heard it right. Betelgeuse is about 600 light-years away from us, so the light we see today actually left the star 600 years ago. It has quite a history. This star has been shining brightly for millions of years. Long, long ago, even before smartphones and telescopes, ancient Sumerians were the first to spot Betelgeuse in the sky, and it's been a diva this entire time. For example, in 1866, Betelgeuse became one of the brightest stars in the night sky. It was so dazzling that people could see it even during the day. Astronomers all around the world went bananas documenting this extraordinary event. Since then, Betelgeuse has been playing hide-and-seek with us. It all started when Betelgeuse started to dim back in 2019. Since then, it likes to dim and brighten sporadically. But these changes in brightness tell us about something important. As we mentioned, Betelgeuse was always a bit of a troublemaker. It's been living a fast and furious life. Because of that, it has been burning its fuel at an incredibly fast rate. The changes in the star's brightness are clues that Betelgeuse is approaching the end of its life cycle. The drama intensified when the Hubble Space Telescope snapped jaw-dropping images of Betelgeuse, like it was getting ready to blow its top. All this made scientists think that the star is close to retiring in a dramatic way. It's about to go supernova. So picture a star partying hard, powered by the fusion of hydrogen atoms. It's like the star's own energy drink, but just like any party, the fuel starts to run out. That's when things get interesting. As the star guzzles up its hydrogen fuel, it slowly begins to run on empty. It can't sustain itself anymore. So now, it's time for the grand finale. This finale is called supernova. The star collapses in on itself like a deflating balloon. The pressure and temperature inside skyrocket to mind-boggling levels, and this celestial tantrum triggers a colossal bang. So you can see why observing Betelgeuse is like having a front-row seat to the spectacular drama. But here's the big question. When will this happen? Well, the answer is not as simple as setting a timer. You see, stars have their own schedules, and Betelgeuse is no different. It could be tomorrow, or it could be thousands of years from now. Scientists have come up with only a rough estimate. They believe that Betelgeuse will go supernova within the next 100,000 years. Quite a spread, huh? Sure, that sounds like forever to us, tiny humans. But in the vastness of the universe, it's just a blink of an eye. But there's a chance, just a tiny chance, that Betelgeuse could surprise us all and go supernova much sooner. Considering its dips in brightness, we might be in for a show within the next few hundred years. We'll just have to wait and see. Now, if Betelgeuse does go kaboom, what will happen? We'll get ready for a show like no other, folks. When a star collapses under its own weight, it unleashes a cosmic firework of epic proportions. The star releases a crazy amount of energy in the form of light and heat. Betelgeuse's supernova is going to be extra special. It's like the superstar of supernovas. It will shine so brightly that it might even outshine the other stars in the sky. Picture that, Betelgeuse stealing the spotlight. The show could be so bright that you won't need a telescope to catch a glimpse. Nope, you'll be able to see it with a naked eye. It might even be visible during the day, making the sky look like it's hosting the coolest rave ever. After that, the supernova will keep us entertained for weeks. It will be like having a second moon in the sky, shining as bright as the full thing. Imagine that, 2 moons dancing together in the night. After several weeks of lighting up the night sky, Betelgeuse's supernova will slowly fade away, but it would leave behind a souvenir, an ethereal remnant. It's like a fading memory of the star's epic performance. This remnant, too, would slowly fade away over the course of several months. But it's not just about the light show. The boom will send out powerful shockwaves, and we might actually feel them right here on Earth. It's like the universe giving us a gentle tap on the shoulder, saying, hey, look at this amazing spectacle. How dangerous will it be for us? Well, we know that Betelgeuse's supernova would send dust and gas shooting into the atmosphere. It's like a big space sneeze. And this sneeze could cause a decrease in global temperatures. We're talking serious climate impact here. It could even lead to a mini ice age. But these are just assumptions. We don't know for sure if the consequences will really be that serious. But, of course, we want to be prepared for this event just in case. That's why scientists are studying Betelgeuse closely. But, in addition to serious scientific research, astronomers also have a blast of celestial comedy. Jokes are flying left and right. Someone has even created a Betelgeuse status account, which you can check yourself. So, as you can see, the star is keeping us on our toes. Astronomers keep observing it, and they need our help too. They want us to keep an eye on Betelgeuse and report any changes we see. How do you do that? First off, channel your inner astronomer and observe Betelgeuse. Take a peek at the star and note down what you see. Is it twinkling, shining, or feeling a bit dim? Jot it all down. Then be a superstar yourself and report your observations to the astronomers. Your observations will help them track Betelgeuse's journey towards its big supernova moment. You can also join in on some citizen science projects. They're super fun and easy, trust me. One cool project you can jump into is the Betelgeuse Brightness Monitor. By participating, you help scientists keep tabs on how bright Betelgeuse is shining. Your contribution can make a real difference. So join the monitoring team. You'll be part of something amazing, and who knows? Your observations might even help predict when Betelgeuse will show off its supernova magic. By doing that, we can assist them in monitoring this superstar and learn more about the fascinating world of stars. But that's how we can help scientists to predict this event. Now, how can you personally prepare for it? First things first, you'll need the right gear to catch all the supernova action. A trusty telescope is like your front row ticket to the starry show. It'll bring you up close and personal with Betelgeuse's performance. And remember, you'll need special eyewear to shield your eyes from the intense burst of light. Safety first. And of course, prepare in case it decides to mess with our climate. Stock up on essentials, like warm clothes and supplies, just in case we experience a mini ice age. But let's just hope it won't happen. So keep your eyes on the night sky, my friends. Betelgeuse may not be ready to blow up just yet, but when it does, it will be a sight to behold. Until then, let's enjoy the twinkling stars. And remember, there's always something extraordinary happening in the vastness of space.
What happens when a star runs out of its fuel? First of all, paradoxically, it grows to 1,000,000 times its original size. You see, when the core of a star runs out of hydrogen, it starts contracting under the weight of its own gravity. But some hydrogen fusion continues in the upper layers. While the core contracts, it heats up. This causes the upper layers of the star to heat up too and expand. The radius of the star increases. As the star grows, it engulfs any matter, even its own planets, in its wake. Astronomers have watched stars right before or straight after swallowing entire planets, but until recently, they have never seen the process itself. Scientists from different universities have reported that for the first time in history, they've observed a star swallowing a planet. And this tragic event happened not somewhere in a faraway galaxy, but in our own Milky Way, some 12,000 light-years away from us. Astronomers spotted an outburst from a star, which is around 0.8 to 1.5 times the mass of our Sun, near the eagle-like constellation, Aquila. It became over 100 times brighter than usual in a mere 10 days, and after that, it quickly faded away. Even more interesting, this white-hot flash was followed by a longer-lasting signal that was also colder than the first flash. And this combination, my friend, could only mean one thing. The star engulfed a nearby planet. What planet was it? Astronomers believe it could be a boiling hot world from 1 to 10 times the mass of Jupiter. Such planets are also called hot Jupiters. They're giant exoplanets similar to the Jupiter we have in our solar system that need less than 10 days to orbit their stars. The planet we're talking about had been gradually spiraling toward the star until it was pulled into its atmosphere and, eventually, into the core of the perishing star. This galactic feast happened between 10,000 and 15,000 years ago when the star was about 10 billion years old. And given its respectable age, the swallow itself happened lightning fast, in one fell swoop. This is very different from other hot Jupiters, which were quite delicately nibbled by their stars. Astronomers aren't sure if there are any other planets orbiting this star, perhaps at a safer distance. But even if there are, thousands of years will probably pass before they become the star's main course or dessert. In any case, now that astronomers know what they should search for, they're going to be on the lookout for more cosmic gulps. Because one day, our planet, as well as part of our solar system, will suffer the same fate. Everything around us will be gone in a flash. But you may relax and breathe out. It won't happen for another 5 billion years. That's when the sun is supposed to burn out and expand so much that it will swallow the inner planets of the solar system, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. If people manage to colonize some other world by that time, which should be at least 10,000 light years away from Earth, they would be able to observe this catastrophe. The sun would suddenly become much, much brighter, and it would eject some material into space. It would swallow several planets, including Earth, before nonchalantly setting back to what it was. But stars are not the only things in the universe that swallow other space objects. There's another kind of cosmic monsters that munch on everything, even light. Have you guessed? Right. I'm talking about ruthless black holes. But what is more interesting, they not only devour stuff, but also seem to spit it out. Not so long ago, scientists found out that the supermassive black hole at the center of our home Milky Way galaxy seems to be leaking. Why is it a game changer? Because it might mean that this black hole, called Sagittarius A*, whose mass is 4.1 million times the mass of our Sun, isn't a sleeping giant as previously thought. It might still be active, and this leakage may be the whole hiccuping while swallowing clouds of gas. During the research, the team of astronomers used the Hubble Space Telescope. It helped them spot a jet that looked like a blowtorch. It was pushing into clouds of hydrogen at the center of our galaxy. The jet seemed to spew gas like a hose directed into a pile of sand. This often happens around active black holes, surrounded by the material, pulled toward them by their immense gravitational pull. Some of this material gets into the black hole, but a small part of it gets swept outward by powerful magnetic fields. The research suggests that when a giant gas cloud gets too close to our supermassive black hole, it gets swallowed, and then the hole belches mini-jets of matter. Fermi bubbles might be the result of the belches that happened around 2 to 4 million years ago. But recently, scientists have discovered another giant glowing bubble of hot gas. It aligned with the jet stretching for 35 light-years or more from the supermassive black hole. Astronomers suspect that the jet could have plowed into this bubble of gas and inflated it. Now I'll tell you something even creepier. There seem to be black holes that might be eating each other. Well, kind of. They're actually trying to share their meal at the moment, but who knows what will happen in the near future. But let me go into detail. Astronomers have spotted 2 supermassive black holes, feasting on the cosmic material of 2 merging galaxies in distant space. These giants have been located with the help of the Atacama Large Millimeter Submillimeter Array of Telescopes, also known as ALMA. These telescopes are in northern Chile's Atacama Desert. Scientists originally used them to watch 2 merging galaxies located about 500 million light-years away from Earth. Astronomers have also noticed that 2 gigantic black holes were growing alongside each other not far from the center of the coalescing galaxy, UGC 4211. Apparently, these black holes came across each other when their host galaxies collided. One of the black holes is around 200 million times the mass of our Sun, and the other is a bit smaller, about 125 million times the mass of our star. Even though they aren't visible directly, the black holes are surrounded by bright clusters of warm, glowing gas and stars. All of this has been tugged close by the black hole's gravitational pull. Times will pass, and these black holes will start circling each other. And eventually they will collide, creating one, probably even bigger black hole. Scientists have been observing these black holes across multiple wavelengths of light and have come to the conclusion that they are kinda unique. They're located the closest to each other astronomers have ever seen. The distance between them is a mere 750 light-years, which astronomically speaking, is just next door. Even more exciting, this distance is close to the limit of what modern technologies can detect. Interestingly, such ginormous merges are more typical for distant galaxies. This makes it harder for Earth-based telescopes to see them. But the sensitivity of ALMA helped astronomers observe those bright and compact regions where matter swirls around black holes. Imagine how surprised astronomers were when instead of one black hole, they saw 2 of them, munching on the dust and gas stirred up by the massive space merger. The most important thing about this discovery is that it may mean that such black hole binaries are likely to be much more common than we previously thought. And if pairs of black holes are so common, it might make it easier for us to study gravitational waves that occur when black holes collide. Such waves are also known as ripples in spacetime. If we talk about the recently discovered pair of black holes, it might still take them several hundred million years to crash into each other. But by observing their behavior, scientists can figure out how many binary black holes that are about to collide exist in the universe.
Okay, here's the deal. Something is bound to happen that can affect everything we've ever known about space and time. You've heard about black holes, right? That denser-than-life type of phenomenon that usually exists in the center of galaxies. 2 of them, located 9 billion light-years away from Earth, are expected to collapse into each other. And my oh my, I do not want to be around to see that. Let's get one thing straight. Black holes are the most powerful things in the entire universe that we know of. If they decided to go all Revenge of the Sith on us, we'd be doomed. A black hole was once a massive star that went supernova, meaning that the star collapsed onto itself, and the sheer magnitude of the explosion created a black hole in its place. Oh, by the way, black holes do not pull things inside like a vacuum cleaner. That's just a popular myth. Say we were to replace our sun with a black hole at the center of the solar system. Not much would change, except that maybe we'd all freeze. Yup. But black holes can do something much worse than vacuum stuff. they can delete the universe itself. If a black hole was to follow a normal timeline, it would go from its creation to total disappearance. But this process is very, very slow. I'm talking about billions and billions of years before a black hole loses its mass entirely. That happens because they're constantly losing their mass every single second. Black holes radiate their mass away, like a boiling teapot loses its water as steam. Yet things rarely go as planned, both in our lives and apparently in the universe itself. So it wouldn't be that much of a surprise to find out that two black holes are en route to collapse. That's what scientists have found out recently. And let's just say that this is one of the reasons why the scientific community is freaking out just a little bit. The first question that comes to mind is, what does that mean for us humans? Total annihilation? No need to be this dramatic. The best case scenario would be in for an interstellar type of experience. Roll me in, please. Let's rewind a little bit to understand how this would happen. 45 years ago, a group of scientists began noticing a weird behavior coming from a galaxy far, far away. The galaxy is found 9 billion light-years away, and its scientific name is a mouthful, but let's just call it Super Far Away Galaxy. You might be asking yourself, well, how did scientists observe this black hole so far away if it doesn't emit any light? Good question. That's because black holes gather disks of gas around them, and they emit some of this material into space. These jets can be detected from a distance of millions of light-years. Now, if these hot gas jets are directed towards space, then scientists give these black holes a special name – blazars. A particular blazar has been gaining worldwide attention recently. Long name, but let's just call it Andy. Imagine you're a scientist at Caltech and you're looking at a blazar in your radio telescope and you notice its strange behavior. Its brightness goes on and off, like the ticking of a clock. At first, you don't understand what's happening over there in a distant corner of the galaxy. But then, you realize there must be another black hole circling the first one. In other words, scientists discovered that Andy was being orbited by another blazar, Gomer. And the regularity of their twinkling can only mean they are close to a total collapse. It gets worse. Each of the two blazars is estimated to be a few 100 million times the mass of our Sun. Have you seen our Sun? It's huge. It's already 333,000 times the mass of our Earth. This means we're destined to face something out of our league. Now, this is not the first time scientists have detected something like this. In September 2015, the LIGO Observatory detected a collision of two black holes. Each of them was as heavy as 30 suns, and an equivalent of 3 solar masses was released once they crashed into each other. And guess what? This gravitational wave passed through Earth at the speed of light. But we really weren't affected by it. Maybe you were sleeping and felt something weird in the air, but nothing significant happened to us as a species or to our planet. But that's because the blast was weak. The thing is, the expected collision between Andy and Gomer will send unprecedented gravitational waves throughout galaxies, and they will reach the solar system. But what is this shock wave actually capable of doing? Well, it could stop our Sun from releasing gas for a few minutes, which means it would stop heating the solar system. So, let's say you were going about your summer day, and out of the blue, the atmosphere froze for a few seconds. Doesn't sound too nice, huh? But that's actually a better possibility than the next one. In one of the worst-case scenarios, a blast from the collision between Andy and Gomer could break bonds between atoms and make everything disintegrate. You, me, your cat, we'd all turn into flying particles floating in the vacuum of space. This may sound scary, but scientists say that an atom is made out of 99% empty space. This means that everyone on this Earth, all 8 billion of us, and everything that exists, planets, objects, animals, are all made up of 99% empty space. So perhaps all that Andy and Gomer would do is separate all of our atoms and desolidify us. Then again, the blast could mess with the fabric of space and time as we know it. You remember Albert Einstein, right? Crazy hair? He's the name behind the theory of relativity. Einstein discovered that time is relative. It's always dependent on the observer. This would mean that time is not the same throughout the cosmos. Why though? Well, because Einstein's theory of relativity is also a theory of gravity. Einstein discovered that gravity is the effect that objects have on the fabric of space-time. Every object that has a mass, including you, me, your cat, and our planet, creates a warp or a distortion in the fabric of space-time that causes it to bend. The bigger the mass, the bigger the gravitational force, and the bigger the distortion on the fabric. It may sound complicated, but hey, this is what creates different perceptions of space and time throughout the cosmos. This is why you'll age differently on Earth and on Jupiter. This is why time passes completely different for astronauts on long missions and for people that remain on Earth. And this is why a collision of two mega blazars could mess with our perceptions of space and time due to the sheer force of its gravitational shockwaves. Got it? Not to mention that black holes are already a huge warp in the fabric of space-time. You remember that interstellar scene, right? Where the lead character bends the space-time continuum through a black hole? Now, don't try this at home though. As far as we know, anyone who chooses to go inside a black hole has no guarantee of making it home again. Scientists say that this blazar explosion will happen in approximately 10,000 years. But wait a minute. If this blazar lies 9 billion light-years away from Earth, it means that these two black holes should have already collided long before our solar system and home planet were born. You see, the solar system was born around just 4 billion years ago. And since it takes us 9 billion light-years to receive the light emitted from the blazars in the first place, this means that the collapse of the two blazars already took place, and it'll reach Earth 10,000 years from now. This means the shockwaves are already making their way through the galaxies at this very moment. But still, it's not something even your great-great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren will be around to see.
Now imagine a place where a single day lasts longer than a whole year. On Venus, a day, meaning one full spin on its axis, is as long as 243 Earth days. And what's even weirder, despite the fact that Venus is experiencing a never-ending day, it has a shorter year than Earth. While Earth takes about 365 days to complete one orbit around the Sun, Venus does it in just 225 days. So, somehow, for Venus, a day is more epic than a whole year. Venus is a strange planet in general. It's called Earth's twin because of how alike we are, although it's a bit smaller than Earth. But there are some drastic differences too. For example, it spins in the opposite direction, which means the Sun there rises in the west and sets in the east. And Venus isn't the only one who dances to its own rhythm. Uranus does that too. And finally, Venus is quite crazy in terms of its atmosphere. When you stand on Earth, you don't really feel the weight of the air around you. Well, on Venus, that feeling would be like having an elephant sitting on your shoulders. Venus has 90 times the atmospheric pressure of Earth. The atmosphere there is a thick layer of toxic gases. For example, carbon dioxide that's released by all the volcanoes. It presses down with incredible force. This results in very hot temperatures. No wonder it'll take a long time before we'll be able to stand on this planet. Meanwhile, Mercury, the closest planet to the Sun, has an even more speedy orbit than Venus. It completes a full journey around the Sun in just about 88 Earth days. However, it has a slow spin on its axis, which means that one day on Mercury takes about 176 Earth days, basically half a year. Just like with Venus, a day there takes much longer than a year. Since it's closest to the Sun, no wonder Mercury experiences some super extreme temperature swings. Daytime temperatures can soar up to a scorching 800 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to melt lead. But wait for the sunset. At night, it drops to freezing minus 290 degrees Fahrenheit. Ooh! That's because Mercury doesn't have a thick atmosphere like we do, so the heat doesn't distribute across the planet evenly. If one side is in the dark, it'll be super cold, and the other side will be scorching hot, just like if you let a regular big rock lie down under the sun for a while. In fact, it's so cold that there might even be some ice on it. Look at the planet's North Polar region, especially those sunlit yellow spots inside craters. These are indications of water ice. Turns out water is much more common in space than we thought. Mars is often dubbed the Red Planet. It earns this nickname from the abundance of iron oxide, or rust, covering its surface. The iron-rich minerals create a rusty red hue that paints the Martian landscape. But it turns out Mars isn't just red. If you were standing on Mars, you'd witness desert-like butterscotch terrain with caramel and golden glows, some brown, and even a glimpse of a slight greenish hue. Mars also has the biggest mountain in the entire solar system, Olympus Mons, standing at a staggering height of about 13.6 miles tall. It's even taller than Mount Everest. It was formed by the volcanic eruption yielding low-viscosity lava, creating a shield-like structure. Since Mars is covered in sand, it's also famous for its crazy dust storms. But it turns out they're even more insane than we thought. These storms can last for months. While they might present challenges for future human missions, they also contribute to the planet's mesmerizing appearance when observed from afar. And not only storms, but even its own Mars quakes. Also known as seismic tremors, they were first detected by NASA in 2019. Unlike earthquakes that are often triggered by tectonic plate movements, Martian quakes are thought to result from the cooling and contracting of the planet's interior. It's interesting how similar, yet how different the planets are. Saturn's iconic rings might hold a secret link to Earth's ancient past. The rings are composed mainly of ice particles and debris and are estimated to be relatively young in space terms, perhaps just a few 100 million years old. Now, there are some theories that propose that they were born after some catastrophic event. For example, the collision of two large moons or the breakup of a comet. What's interesting is that this timeline coincides with the age of the dinosaurs' demise on Earth. Could there be a connection? Who knows? By the way, while Saturn takes the crown for its rings, it's not the only planet in our solar system sporting them. Jupiter, Uranus, and Neptune all have their own set of rings, although they might not be as visible and cool as Saturn's. However, there's something where Saturn truly stands out: the magnificent hexagon at its North Pole. It's a colossal six-sided figure. Each side of this incredible structure measures around 9,000 miles long, which is 1,200 miles longer than the Earth's diameter. Scientists aren't sure how it was formed or why. They think it might be due to varying wind speeds, or maybe it's shaped by a localized, slow, meandering jet stream. So far, it remains another of Saturn's mysteries. Much like Saturn's hexagon, Jupiter also has its own weird spot. It's called the Great Red Spot. This is a storm that's been raging for at least 350 years and is larger than Earth itself. Despite its name, the spot's coloration has varied over the years, ranging from brick red to pale salmon. Scientists continue to study this enduring storm, unlocking the mysteries of its persistence and ever-changing hues. Meteorologically, the Great Red Spot is a powerhouse. It generates enormous pressure in Jupiter's southern hemisphere. Meanwhile, Jupiter itself is a powerhouse when it comes to magnetic fields. Its magnetic influence is colossal. It extends far beyond the planet itself and creates one of the largest and strongest magnetic fields in our solar system. Because of that, Jupiter is a source of intense radiation and mesmerizing auroras. While Earth's northern lights are breathtaking, Jupiter has something to offer too. The magnetic field interacts with charged particles from Jupiter's moons and the solar wind. This creates visually striking auroras near its poles. But compared to Earth, the scale of these auroras is incredible, like nothing we've seen on our planet. But even having a cool big spot isn't a unique feature in our solar system. A stormy giant Neptune, the eighth and farthest planet from the Sun, also has its great dark spot. Just like Jupiter, it's a massive vortex in Neptune's atmosphere. But unlike its Jupiter counterpart, this spot tends to come and go because of Neptune's dynamic and ever-changing weather patterns. Neptune, together with Uranus, is known as an ice giant. And just like other giants, it boasts some of the most ferocious winds in our solar system. Its supersonic winds can get faster than 2,200 miles per hour. What a drama queen! But this explains its thick cloud formations. By the way, if you ever dreamed of a planet raining diamonds, you might want to visit this planet. Deep within Neptune's atmosphere, where pressures are extreme, scientists theorize that carbon atoms are compressed and form diamonds. And then, these diamonds might be raining down. What a unique touch to stormy weather. Neptune's moons got from their parent with the weird weather. For example, its largest moon, Triton, has a touch of cryovolcanism. Instead of spewing molten rock like Earth's volcanoes, Triton's cryovolcanoes erupt with a mix of water, ammonia, and nitrogen. Picture it as icy geysers shooting material into space. Seems like in our solar system alone, each planet has its own quirks and interesting qualities. Let's hope that we discover some more interesting things in outer space in the future.